All right, little buddy, what are we talking about this week? Oh, you got your little sign. What does the sign say? Depth of field versus bokeh. What's that all about? Well, we did a video on bokeh already, but we haven't done one on depth of field. So how about we combine them, depth of field and bokeh, to figure out what they are. Are they useful? Do you think? Are they useful? Yeah, they're pretty useful if you're a photographer, knowing how they work, right? So, let's find out how useful. Grab yourself something to eat or drink, get yourself comfortable, and let's get it on.
Here I am, Vietnam. Rain is always coming down.
This is Camera Talk with Dr. Scott. And my little sign holding, injured, soon to be okay co-host, Dylan. That's right, Dylan and I back for another week of Camera Talk. What's our subject this week? Well, as the sign says, turn this way. As the sign says, depth of field versus bokeh. All right. Do you know what they are? Do you know what the differences are? Yeah? Okay, go ahead and tell us. I'll just sit back and let you take over. Go. Not quite sure what to say, huh?
Get the fuck out of here.
All right, I'll take it from here. Thanks for the effort anyway. Whew. So, depth of field versus bokeh. Same, but different.
Same, but different. But still same.
Sort of, kind of. Yeah. You kind of need one to produce the other. So let's go through how that works. All right, let's look at depth of field. All right, move you over here, buddy, so you're not constantly in my way. Bobbing back and forth. Depth of field. What is it? What is it?
Touchy,
It's what?
touchy, people, baba.
Yeah, depth of field versus bokeh. That's translated from Dylan talk. But anyway, depth of field is, in a nutshell, the distance between, the distance between the nearest and farthest from the camera to the object and beyond. And what is considered acceptably sharp or in focus within that field. That is your depth of field.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
So when you have what they call a shallow depth of field, means that the object, like if Dylan was the object here and it's a shallow depth of field, you might only get the very front of his face. You know, his ears and whatnot, and me would be out of focus. When you have a large depth of field, then everything, well, depending on how large, but you'll have more things in focus. Now, how does that even come to exist? What does that even mean?
I don't know.
Well, there's a scientific way of looking at this. There's a formula saying depth of field equals 2 times the distance squared added to the f number, your f-stop on your lens, times the circle of confusion.
What you talking about, doctor?
Divided by your focal length squared.
See, now that's some bullshit.
Do you know, you get all that?
What? No.
That's how you kind of figure it out. Now, way back, in old days, people may have had to figure out what the heck that means and how do you calculate that and so on. In today's world, with today's modern cameras and all the onboard computing that goes on, we don't really give a crap what all that means.
Who cares?
But basically, that's what your depth of field is. Now, what is it? How do you even use it, or what is it? What is it good for? Or what does it mean to anybody besides myself and my co-host Dylan? Well, you can influence it or change it by the aperture. Probably the easiest and most straightforward way to deal with depth of field is your aperture range. So, you know, again, the distance from the subject. Again, when you're taking a picture, the distance to the subject, so everything in the foreground, everything in the background, you know, is what's in concerned. Now, the distance from the camera to the subject is also going to play a factor into that. So the smaller your aperture opening, which means the larger your f-stop. Remember, in photography, that's the way lenses work. The larger the number, the smaller the opening.
That's how you use it.
The smaller the number, the larger the opening. You get all that?
Holy shit.
Yeah. So anyway, the smaller your opening in your aperture or your iris, just like your eye, the more in focus things will be in your photograph. So if you're looking at f8, f11, f16, f22, you'll get everything in focus from here off to the mountains. You know, is how it's designed to work. The larger your aperture is open, the more shallow that depth of field is. And as I said, it's the distance from the camera to the subject. And it's a very challenging aspect to get that subject in focus because your depth of field is very shallow. Aww. Especially the bigger, you know, again, your f1.4s, 1.2s, 1s, 0.95s, and so on and so on. Your depth of field becomes smaller and smaller and narrower. So that's basically, you know, what your depth of field is that you're looking at. So you know, the larger your opening, the more of that out of focus background or foreground, whichever way you look at it, is out of focus, and the resulting quality of that out of focus background is what's termed as bokeh.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Some people like to say bouquet, but we all know what a bouquet is, right? It's a group of flowers, it's a bouquet of flowers. So let's just go with bokeh. Now, every lens design, as well as the manufacturer of that lens, tends to render a different or unique quality of that blur. And again, that's when some people, and it's a subjective thing.
It actually really, really sucks.
Some people will say, oh, it's lovely blur, lovely bokeh. Or some people will say, oh, it's busy, or it's nervous, or it's an ugly bokeh, or whatnot. It's due to taste. Some people like red wine, some people like white wine.
Potato. Tomato.
Some people like beer, some people like apple cider. This guy likes all of it. A little alcoholic. Huh? He's like, yeah, give me a beer, Daddy. So anyway, well, let's talk about bokeh then. So that's your depth of field. Hopefully, you get what that's all about. If not, ask somebody else like Dylan. He'll explain it better.
You talking to me?
Yeah, sure, huh? All right, so let's talk about bokeh. All right, let's get into it. Okay, and we're back. Dylan had a little potty break. Seems to be a trending thing. The last camera talk, he did the same thing. Halfway through, he decides he needs to pee. Anyway, nature calls. We got to do what we got to do, right?
Wait for the shake.
So anyway, so we talked about depth of field. Now we're going to talk about which part? What's this? What's that say? What's this? What's that say?
Cookie.
Huh?
Cookie.
Cookie. We talk about cookies. We talk about we get a depth of field versus bokeh.
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
Bokeh.
Booba.
Yeah, Booba. No, that's a cartoon on Netflix. No, Booba, bokeh. All right, so what is bokeh then? Well,
Rich, smooth, buttery bokeh.
I'm sure you've all heard the term before, and I just mentioned it earlier. You know, bokeh, or some say bokeh, but
Sweet, sweet bokeh.
bokeh, derived from the Japanese word bokeh, which translates into blur and other things, but roughly that's what it is. Now, back in the 1990s, when it was talked about in a magazine called, yeah, see, you erased it, a magazine called Photo Technique, one of the writers, Mike Johnson, introduced the H at the end of bokeh because people were mispronouncing it. They say B-O-K-E, and they call it boke, like a bottle of Coke. Just like with Nike and Nike, you know, whether you pronounce the E or not. So this is a bokeh. It's not a bokeh. It's bokeh. So the H is on there, so it's clear as to what that actually means. All right, so and it's an oddity, you know, in photography because some people love it, some people hate it.
I don't like the artsy-fartsy thing. I think I hated his...
What do you? Do you love it or you hate it? Do you love it? Huh? Yes? No? Oh, you're busy drawing new things. All right, so some people love it, some people hate it. Some people like criticize it as if they're art critics or something, and some people just don't care.
I don't give a damn.
Now, what is bokeh affected by? Well, that's where we get back into that versus thing, depth of field versus bokeh. It's affected by the depth of field. You know, if you have a large depth of field, then you really don't really have any out of focus area because everything's in focus. So it makes no sense, right? So the shallow depth of field, the wider your aperture, the more out of focus area is in front of your subject and behind your subject and all around your subject for that matter. And, you know, and it is affected by, besides that depth of field, the number and the shape of your aperture blades within the lens itself. You know, if you have curved aperture blades as the aperture is opening or closing, as you stop down, it affects what are known as the bokeh balls. Do you like your balls round?
Say, everybody haven't seen my balls.
You like your balls round? You like to ignore daddy while you're drawing? Very focused. So the bokeh balls can be round. They could be oblong. They could be nut-shaped. Just all depends on the... Yes, it's a lovely picture. Is that a picture of mommy? Huh? Yeah?
Picture mommy.
Mommy's not going to be happy with that picture. So it's affected by the aperture blades.
Car.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a car either. It looks more like mommy. And so the shape of your bokeh ball is totally influenced by the number of blades you have. Now, of course, if you're shooting wide open all the time, regardless of 1.4 or 0.95, you're going to have circular bokeh ball, but that'll be pretty much in the center of your image. As you get towards the edges of your image, you may get the cat eye effect, the oblong warping of the bokeh ball, and you can. I'll show you samples of that here. So of course, besides ranging in these different shapes, it's also due to things like distortion. Getting away from the center of your image, aberrations, have an effect on them. The lens design itself, some lenses are designed with bokeh in mind, and they purposely will create effects with the out of focus background that are desirable, whether they're swirly or whether they're, again, rounded like soap bubble bokeh balls and so forth and so on. Aspheric elements can also add an effect into the bokeh ball itself, to which some people like or don't like. Well, it causes, the aspheric causes an onion ring effect. Little circles within circles within circles within the bokeh ball itself. So anyway, they're, again, some people love it, some people don't. Some people don't really give a crap. Do you give a crap?
No. No.
Huh?
Sail.
Seldom? You seldom give a crap?
That's a sail.
Yeah. Snail. Is that a snail? Wow. See, Daddy could even guess what that was. That's a much better picture of a snail than your last one as Mommy. Lucky Mommy never watches these camera talks. Well, nobody really watches these camera talks anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It's just me and you talking, buddy.
So, fat woman, are you the boss around here or what?
Fat woman, my ass!
Anyhow, so the shallower your depth of field, the more blur is introduced, right? Since we did depth of field versus bokeh. So they're connected, right? You can't really have your bokeh without the depth of field. So you need depth of field for bokeh, but it doesn't work the other way around. You don't need bokeh for your depth of field. Not related at all. Nothing to do with each other in that regard. So with that said, hopefully, that enlightened a few people out there who may or may not have known the difference between the two. Hopefully now you know. They are different. They're related. They affect each other. Wow, the depth of field can affect the bokeh, but not the other way around. So there's no versus anything. They're a tandem. They're a team. They're a duo. Just like Daddy and Dylan, right? Just like Daddy and Dylan. Yeah. All right, so that's enough of that. Let's talk about our what? Bokeh. Sorry, that one's beyond me. I can't translate that. Yeah, sure. Just humor him. Our photo editing software. Who do we use? Or who do I use? I use Luminar. All right, Luminar is a product produced by Skylum. Skylum's in Ukraine. Everybody knows what's going on in Ukraine at the moment. Mr. Putin and the gang. So if you want to get yourself a copy of Luminar, because it's a pretty good little piece of software. It does a lot of the same things as some of the big boys like the Lightroom and Photoshop and whatnot. But
Like big butts and I cannot lie.
It's a standalone thing. And it also works with, it's a plug-in also for Lightroom and Photoshop. So hey, it plays well with others. And if you want to get yourself a copy, in the link below in the description, you'll see a link there. Click on that. It'll bring you to Skylum. You can purchase Luminar, a copy of Luminar, and it'll deduct $10.
What?
It'll deduct $10 because it's already economical. So who doesn't want to save even more money, right? Save $10. So if it's 90 bucks, it's 80 bucks. If it's 80 bucks, it's 70 bucks. I don't know what the price is today, but hey, you'll save money on it, right? Right? Everybody likes to save money, right? Yeah. So what do they do with that $10?
Toga! Toga!
Huh? What do they do with that $10? Do they give it to Dylan? They don't give it to Dylan? Who do they give it to?
Mommy.
They give it to Mommy. How does mommy even get involved? I just told you she didn't even watch these camera talks. She has nothing to do with these camera talks. And yet here you are giving our $10 away to mommy. Go figure.
I don't like you. Jerk off.
Damn children. So, get yourself a copy. All right, so how about we get everybody to, especially first-time viewers, to support our channel and subscribe. All right, because, hey, the more subscribers we have out there, the more exposure we get out in the world, right? So how about you subscribe? Do you think they heard that? Yeah? Are you sure? Well, how about we give them a double one? Subscribe! For those who aren't listening. Subscribe. What does YouTube like besides subscribe? Don't eat that. Hey, yeah. Don't put things in your mouth, mister. That's how you get colds and flus and everything else out there. Hasn't Daddy talked to you about viruses yet?
Get the fuck out of here.
Huh? Has Daddy talked to you about viruses yet? Yeah. Come on. Yeah, besides subscribers, what else does YouTube like? Well, they like the thumbs up, right? So if you give us a thumbs up, we'll give you a taste of Dylan's girlfriends. That doesn't sound right. You're going to taste his girlfriends?
Ew!
Well, the thumbs up girls. How about you sing with me? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thumbs up. Do 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 do. Thumbs up. All right, so that's the thumbs up girls. Dylan loves those thumbs up girls. They're kind of cute. So anyway, what else? You think they should come back next week? Huh? Should they come back next week? Dylan? Should they come back next week? Yes? No? Should they come back next week? Huh? Well, I'll say yes. Come on back next week. Why? Because you belong here. That's right. And where do they belong? What's the name of this show? This was Camera Talk with Dr. Scott and Dylan. That's right, and Dylan. So, well, who is Dr. Scott and Dylan?
Yay!
Who are we?
Yay!
We are yay? Yeah, that's a check mark. I'm Dr. Scott. He's Dylan.
I am your father.
Together we're all Modesty Photography. We're here to talk about tips and tricks about photography, camera lenses, camera systems, depth of field and bokeh, and whatever else you want to talk about. So, so come on back next week. So thank you for dropping by. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching.
Eat candy.
Thank you for eating candy. Thank you for, what else? Thank you for subscribing.
Yay.
Thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you for buying a copy of Luminar through our link. And thank you for just being you.
8.
8. Yeah. That's an H. H. Yeah. So we do one of these. Come back next week. We do one of these shows every week. That's Friday, Vietnam time. Remember, that could be the day before you, the day after you, or the same day as you, depending on where you are in the world and depending on your funky time zone. So I think that's it, right? Anything else you want to say? No, can't think of anything else?
What are you waiting for, huh?
All right. Well, let's end it all. And we'll talk to you next week. All right. See ya. Say bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Here I am.